Founders fall into a trap that they'll hire someone for sales, they'll solve the problem. They'll hire someone for product, they'll solve the problem. Where to spend and where to save is tricky, specifically when you have funding also. We have had people who had great skills but probably not cut out for startups.
Hi Anurag.
Hi Shai.
I'm here talking to the founder of a health tech startup that lets you run medical tests using just your phone. Today I want to understand how something this complicated actually gets off the ground. Anurag, you're trying to put medical testing on a phone. What made this worth betting on?
I'm a third-time co-founder in healthcare space, and I realized that there are a lot of gaps in Indian healthcare space because of affordability, accessibility across the entire spectrum from Mumbai and Delhi's of India to rural areas, and that is where I knew about the gap. And having some previous experiences, I realized that what better than putting this power of diagnostics in your smartphone to enable testing anywhere, anytime.
So what's the problem that you're trying to solve here? Or the problem that you identify?
There are two things that such solutions can offer you. So one is like for metro city like Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi, it solves the convenience bit, that you can get your test results at your convenience anytime and do not have to get someone to come to your place. You do not have to like keep waiting or something, or you do not have to go anywhere. So your convenience is solved. You get instant results, so you don't have to wait for 5-6 hours. At times when you get one-day deliveries or same-day deliveries, why wait for test results for more than 10 minutes? And but another spectrum where like 60-70% of the population of India is, it solves for the accessibility bit. They do not have easy access to such solutions or quality solutions. They have to travel, they have to leave their jobs, or they have to forego their wages and all, and then go to other places. And at the same time, the solutions can be scaled up globally. For example, in US or any other developed country, the labor costs are high, so you cannot afford a phlebotomist coming to your place and getting the tests done. So you can use such devices to generate instant results or lab grade results anytime.
If you had to describe what you do in a sentence, how would you describe it?
Instant testing on your smartphone.
Is India actually ready to test their health using a phone?
Fortunately or unfortunately, COVID was a good tailwind for this sector, where it taught people that you can do it self-test, like the COVID test, that they can do it on their own and the results are reliable. So a lot of people did try that. They know that they can do a test. The other problem that exists is the education and awareness and the trust aspects. So the education and awareness is still not yet very high in a country like India. The trust bit has to be solved because we are a new startup. Though our tests are validated clinically, we have all the regulatory approvals, but to convey this to a common person is something which we are working on. So today we work with clinicians and care providers and doctors and pharma companies to establish that trust with our end users.
Health tech versus fintech versus ed tech versus all other industries. Any specific reason you chose health tech?
I come from a family of doctors, so I think subconsciously that affects my thought process, that I have a keen interest in healthcare. I was born and brought up in a city called Kota, which is like famous for churning out engineers and doctors. I studied both biology and mathematics, cleared both engineering entrance exam and medical entrance exam, ended up being an engineer, so I still like the healthcare bit. So probably that affects my inherent choice, that I am much more inclined towards health tech.
This isn't your first startup. What made you come back and do it again?
This is my third startup in healthcare, and I feel that every startup journey has been something different. It's not the same thing and I have done it better. It is like something new. I have learned from my mistakes and not repeating the same mistakes. I like solving challenges. I love the healthcare space, and I'm moved by touching like lives with your solutions. What makes me do it again is I have had some learnings. I'm now applying it to solve another problem, taking more solutions to people.
How has building a company ground up been different each time you've done it?
The shape of problems keeps changing as you scale. So for example, my first startup, till I was operationally involved, still has raised just one round of investment, had a dozen of employees. And we were in the initial stages of developing, testing out the products, working out the product market fit. So the challenges were a bit different there. We were more focused on innovating on the cost aspect and on the focusing on the sales. The second company was a service company. So there the challenge was, if we had to get more projects, we have to get more people with that kind of a caliber to be hired and retain the existing people, both of which are difficult. The third company, NeoDocs, where I currently work, We are a 40 people team, and with growth, with investments, with increasing sales, there is a lot of other kinds of problems that start coming up, like retaining talent, keep adding to the team, keep utilizing the funds so that you are able to do enough experiments in time, figure out the product market fits and those kind of things.
Did you have any fears when you started NeoDocs?
When starting up, no, because when you're starting up, and specifically for me, it was the third time, I knew a lot of things, what not to do or what mistakes not to make. With my co-founders, they were first-time founders. They had their own set of doubts. For example, they were leaving their jobs. They were getting a salary every month, which they did not have to think of how to make the revenues or where does it come from. For instance, when I first started my previous company, when I went out from college to real life in Mumbai, you have to pay rents, you have to pay for your food, you have to pay for your travel, you have to pay your employees. So you have to figure out where the next money is going to come from.
And what were the first steps you took when you got the idea?
The first step that we took was start building a quick dirty mock-up or get your hands dirty. So we built our first product ourselves. So there was no factory, no company. We just bought the raw materials. We had a very small office around 100 square feet. So we sat there and we all three were designing, developing, testing out on ourselves the products.
How did you validate the business idea?
For NeoDocs, that has been a bit of long journey because we are into healthcare space. So first we built the product, we built the prototype. We started talking to a lot of people around us. A lot of people used to say, yes, it is super cool. They want to try it. They want to use it. When is it available? Those kind of things. We started talking to athletes. Would they be interested? They said yes as well. We started building the product. We had the research use only product, which some of these people tried out as well. And then we got the regulatory approvals 1.5 years to release the product to the broader public. And at this point of time, things went flat. So now people did not want to pay for it. It was a cool product that people wanted to use. And eventually we realized that we were not targeting the right people and the right trigger point why those people would use. So that was an entirely different audience than whom we were initially engaging a lot with.
So how do you decide the right customer profile?
So one is like knowing what you are building. For instance, what we do, what we measure, keeping an open mind, talking to a lot of people in that domain around the use case. Why would they want to use such a product? The why matters because what would be the trigger point or what value does it have? The second is that who will pay, whether it will be them or is there any other stakeholder also for that. For example, for us, a lot of time the end user is a patient using it at a clinic or a healthcare center, but the payer could be a telehealth company or a pharmaceutical company running a patient support program or a clinician or a nursing home. So they pay because we add value to them as well.
What goes into pricing the products that you sell at NeoDocs?
The pricing bit is something. We also keep experimenting out things when we are selling the products. Other thing is that you have to keep a baseline price where sometimes as humans it is psychologically difficult to price a product at a lower cost and then increase the price. You keep a baseline price, a competitive price depending on the other products available in the market or next best competitive thing that is available. If your solution was not there, what were people already doing? And then keep experimenting around the pricing from that. And you can lower the price if you want, you can offer discounts if you want, but yeah, setting up a price and then increasing it is a bit different. If you want to do that, then you'll have to launch a version 2 or a premium version for it, rename the product.
So it's better to set a higher price and then reduce it versus set a lower price and then increase it?
It is totally okay to set a higher price in the competitive product as well if you have a value proposition that is good enough. For example, one of our tests, the kidney care test, is as costly as the test that you get it in a lab done. If you get it from a lab, you will pay almost a similar amount as the MRP of our test. And we have an added advantage that we provide the result instantly. We provide it within 1 minute. You don't have to go to the lab, schedule a test or those kind of things. So we think that we can command that kind of a premium. Though we also keep experimenting. If someone is buying a repeat customer or a bulk customer or B2B customer, they get at a different costing altogether.
How did you fund the very early days of NeoDocs?
Being a repeat co-founder, I had some savings from my previous ventures. The other was that my co-founders were already having some jobs that they had quit. Nikunj and Pratik both were having some good jobs and they had some savings. And we utilized that for funding ourselves. So there was nothing put in the money yet. It was just like we can sustain ourselves. We do not require any additional money or salaries to be paid in the next 6 to 8 months because it is very important to have some stability. You don't have to think about how will you pay the rent, how will you pay for the food, those kind of things. You can even like if someone does not have the resources, they can think of moving in with their family or something if they want such kind of freedom. But since I was living away, I needed certain savings like that. And then coincidentally at that point of time, COVID had started when we started working together in 2020. And that was a good time where we used our entrepreneurial brains. We got some sanitizers manufactured under a private label from a cosmetics manufacturer and sold them, and the profits became the seed money for NeoDocs.
How did you figure out what was enough money to start with?
One was that what kind of a product or team we would like to build, and that was one of the ingredients that went in. And knowing some of the industry things, that you also have to pay for some petty things like infrastructure, lawyers, legal, CAs, those kind of things which are super important to do and do not necessarily add productively, but super important to. So you have to figure those out. If any infrastructural things, you'll need those things and estimate it for a time like 12 months if you estimate, and then add 40% or 50% to it, because you will always go wrong in the estimation.
Always
You'll miss something.
underestimate.
Yes, exactly. So add a buffer to it, probably 30-40%.
When you applied to Y Combinator, what were you expecting to gain out of that?
I'll be honest, we were not selected in our first time. We had been rejected twice before. We had reached till the interview level, the final level before acceptance, and gotten rejected twice from there. And the third time the interviews were the same. They asked us what has changed. They asked some of the questions again, and this time we got selected. And after selection, you have a chance to say no as well. You don't want to participate because you have to part with some equity to Y Combinator. And at that point of time, it was more about the brand name, that it is like, you don't do it, these kind of things day in, day out. These are like once in a lifetime opportunity. We thought that, okay, it's worth giving away that equity for the brand name that you'll get, or the alumni base you'll become a part of it. Because it's good to have a good peer circle, helps you a lot when you are at your lows or you are running into problems specifically. So that's the way we decided to be a part of Y.
Was it worth it?
Yes, it was worth it. Not because of what the Y Combinator taught us, because those things they have also put it in open. You can see all the programs on YouTube, but the peer group that they create, the Slack groups, the WhatsApp group, they have been amazing. So anytime we run into a problem, anyone runs into a problem, you put it across, and there are many people who have came across the problem, who know what not to do, or who have solved the problem, who help you out or connect with you with someone. So that is like a superpower.
How did you get your first 10 customers at NeoDocs?
One is that we did not outsource the sales or the selling part. The founders did it. The first 10 customers, a lot of them were friends of friends or friends of relatives and all, who had some or the other problem or chronic condition that for which we were testing out with. For example, we launched a product which used to monitor a lot of parameters in urine, around 14 to 15 parameters. We saw that a lot of people ask us, can they use it on their parents? Because the parents are old age. And that is where we launched a variant of the product for elderly care. And it started picking up. There was a trigger point. Okay, this is for my parents. The first 10 actual customers beyond this was like putting it out into public forums or going ourselves into sales. We sell to care providers and doctors. So we ourselves go to doctors whom we do not know. We wait in the waiting rooms. We do the pitch. We tell them what the product is, what we do to them or their customers, and do the sales.
What was your first big rejection with NeoDocs?
So we built the product initially with a lot of parameters that everyone in India would want to measure multiple parameters at the same cost, and we thought that the athletes would be a good target because they want to stay healthy, they want to monitor their health and all, and stay in shape. They want to measure it again and again, and we had talked to a few athletes and all where they liked the product. They said that they'll use. And when we had the product out, nobody wanted to pay for it. So they wanted to use, they did not want to pay for it.
How much did it cost?
At that point of time, the MRPs were still between 400 to 500 rupees, but we were willing to offer it at discounted prices because those were our initial customers.
And they still didn't want it.
Exactly. They wanted it, but they did not want to pay for it. So there is a difference between if people want it and they don't want to pay for it, you are not solving a pain point for them. It's just a good to have.
So they would rather go into a lab and pay more than 500 than buy this product and self-test?
Yeah, there are 2-3 things that come into play. So one is that we are a new brand, so we have to also build trust. We have to go beyond the initial 5 or 10 athletes that we know. We cannot just build a business around them. And we had to still build the trust, and we were just measuring a subset of what a lab does. So we were not measuring, lab does your blood test, your urine test, everything. They'll give you 80-90 parameters. And that's also where the thought process came in. Let's add more and more parameters. But we realized eventually, like sometimes less is better. Right now we have products which have just 3 or 4 parameters and they sell a lot.
How do you deal with rejection?
Rejection, The part that as an entrepreneur we have realized to focus on is that why someone rejected. So if they do not require the product, maybe we are targeting the wrong people. If we feel they are the right people and they do not want this, what I are doing currently, maybe there's not a product fit. Or they could be a misfit with the audience, they could be a misfit your target audience, or the product is not a solution. Because as engineers or as product builders, sometimes your idea sounds super cool and you build a solution looking for a problem, and sometimes that problem does not exist. So you have to think in that way.
How long before you turned a profit?
On a gross level, we have always been profitable. We always had that thought process that we cannot lose money on the product or a hardware, because if we cannot make money today, there is no guarantee that we'll make money tomorrow. So we cannot ever sell it below what it costs us to make the product. The other things, the R&D and all those things are additional, because those are in control how much we want to do. So we have never sold any product below the cost it takes to make it. We have always, like, on a gross level been profitable. On an operational level, we do incur a lot of costs for like global regulatory approvals, for clinical trials, testing, for trust building. We do publish a lot of studies, we file a lot of patents, those kind of things. So we do incur a lot of costs there. But beyond that, as I said, if you reduce the R&D component, we are profitable.
How do you decide where to spend and where to save when you're running a business?
Where to spend and where to save is tricky, specifically when you have funding also. So if you don't have funding, it is super easy. Your gut instincts kick in that will you be able to make money on this or not. When you have funding, we always consider like funding is someone trusting us with their own money. So we have to be cognizant it is as good as our money, but at the same time, you have to utilize it. You do not just have to have it as a bank balance that is there. You have to create value, you have to multiply value. That is what the money is for. The investors have already thought of that. They have taken a high risk investment as a startup, so it can go down to zero as well. It can go down to a great multiplier as well. So as an entrepreneur, your aim is to multiply that. And for investing or where do we want to invest, it is like we three co-founders, we sit together, we poke holes in the ideas. So if we feel that we have to invest in hypothetically a news media channel, so we'll start poking holes why it won't work, and then figure out the solutions, like how can we make it work. And
Be
if
a
it,
devil's advocate for
yes,
each
being
other.
a devil's advocate for each other. Exactly.
The largest chunk of the funds right now go into what part of the business?
Currently, since we already have the products up and running, we invest a lot in the sales, expanding the sales, regulatory and clinical trials. So these things beyond inventory, because we also have a physical product, so we have to invest in physical products, keeping the inventory that keeps moving and gets converting into cash. So the biggest chunk, if I have to just put in the header, is the human resources, the employees. Since we were not paying ourselves any salaries or any money to anyone, the biggest expenses even before the first funding was experimenting out digital marketing and the cloud costs. So those were the only expenses that we were incurring. We were having a good supply of interns from IIT. They were happy to just learn, and we did not have money to pay at that time as stipend, and so there was no cost. We had good access to talent, which is both a double-edged sword as well. Sometimes if you have multiple skills, you think that you can do this also, you can do that also, and that distracts you also. You have to develop that focus.
What about product development?
The team is actually the product. There are some things which are the physical assets, for example, the R&D that we do and all, but that is also all dependent on the team. So we spend a lot on the team. Rest all is like the R&D costs are there, but they are not super huge. The team costs are higher. Hiring the best of the talent, retaining them, giving them the freedom to do what they want to do, how they want to do, giving them the freedom to fail. So those all things are needed. The product investments are there, but eventually like they are depreciated over time, because we generate a lot of IP as well on whatever we do.
When is the right time to start drawing a salary as a founder?
One thing I personally believe is that being a founder does not mean that you have to struggle or you have to not draw a salary. If there are funds in the company, either the company is making revenues or the company has the fundraise, you have to have salaries, because if the founder has a stress of paying rents or like paying for his food or something, his mental bandwidth is going onto something which is not productive or not adding to the startup's cause. So you have to think, how can you free up your time or your stress or your mental bandwidth? Finances cannot be a reason. That should be the last reason to have that kind of a stress. So I have never been an advocate of founders not drawing salaries or drawing smaller salaries. If you are adding value, if your startup is growing, it is okay to draw salaries. At the same time, like you have to be cognizant. If it should make economic sense. If there was someone else in that role, what you would have paid You cannot just draw exorbitant salaries just because it's your startup.
How do you decide what to pay yourself as a founder?
One thing is that we should not struggle in our day-to-day lives. So that baseline payment should be there. And beside that, we are already compensated in terms of equity. So our role is to increase the value of the equity. The salary is like a fixed amount that keeps coming, that will scale at a certain level, but the equity is the most valuable part. We generally do not think in terms of how our salaries will increase. We think in terms of how to increase the value of the equity. So whatever we own, how to increase it and how to multiply it. The right amount would be which place you are in. So if I'm in Mumbai, it would be different. If I am in my hometown Kota, it would have been different. I have to be honest with me and the company and the business.
Is it difficult to manage people?
Yes, actually. And that is the part I find the most challenging and I like the most. Because at certain point of time, engineering, tech, all those things can be solved. People problems sometimes don't have answers, or they sometimes have like weird answers that you could have never thought of. So retaining people, keeping them happy, adding more people, convincing people to join you, those kind of things. So yes, team management is super critical.
What's been your biggest challenge in managing people?
Managing people, one of the problems is, rather than the problem, it is a challenge, that keeping expectations in check, because a lot of time there are glamorous stories that come up in news and media of this and that happening, these kind of salaries being there, but people don't think that they only hear about the glamorous parts, not the 99% non-glamorous stuff that is happening. The other thing is also, when I say expectations in check, is just making them cognizant of how the business is running. And also we are super transparent in terms of how much money we make, how much revenues are being made, how much margins are being made with the team. So almost everyone knows. Everyone has a secondary role of, if they can sell, they should be selling it. The next thing is also keep talking to people around what are their expectations, where do they see themselves, what kind of a role that they see themselves growing into, because I've realized retaining people and keeping them happy is in our interest as well, is in their interest as well, and doing regular check-ins with the teammates, knowing what they want to do, how they want to grow. So we came up with a cool thing. Actually, my co-founder Nikunj came up with that. We call it Breakfast with Founders. So we go on a breakfast independently with each of the employees, and we design it in a way that I will go with my team first, then in the second season I'll go with my other co-founders team, then in the third season I'll go with my third co-founders team, and then as two employees at the same time discussing what problems they face, what they are enjoying. So that gives us a one-on-one time beyond work.
That's great. You put a lot of effort into managing your people well.
Yes, because I think productivity gets solved automatically if people are happy and they are enjoying.
And what's something you've learned about leading that you would advise any other founder to keep in mind?
I have had my own set of learnings from my previous startups as well. You build teams with people who do not have experience or who do not have the leadership skills, and you sometimes just give them a set of instructions to follow. At a certain point of time, it is important, like 80% sometimes you have to follow instructions and all. As a growing company with stable products in the market, we have to do. But what I have realized is giving people some freedom. For example, I handle operations and all. My team has freedom in terms of there's a certain cost. Up till that, if they feel there is a solution or they need to take a decision, they're free to take a decision. They don't have to take any approval. They can spend that kind of money. They can experiment out with solutions if they increase their productivity or something. And the thing is that a couple of times they spent money on things that wasted money. They were not good things. But they themselves have become cognizant on what to spend money, what not to spend money. And in fact, some of them tell us now that, okay, this what we are spending money is not needed. We should not spend money or we should save money. So giving people freedom, letting them take some decision making or ownership is super critical to grow the next generation of leaders. And I feel for founders, it is very important because that is what frees up your time to do things which are much more valuable and productive.
In an early stage startup, would you say it's better to hire someone you can train or hire someone you can learn from?
I'll piggyback on one of the things that Y Combinator says. When we raise the first round of investments or they put in the money, don't hire. The hiring is the thing that you don't have to do, because their rationale was that founders fall into a trap that they'll hire someone for sales, they'll solve the problem. They'll hire someone for product, they'll solve the problem, and you miss out on the insights as a founder. What is happening on ground? You cannot outsource the thought process to someone.
But how can you possibly do everything yourself?
The initial bits, when you are on the idea or the initial stages, the scale is not that high. So you have to realize the problems. For example, there are different kind of problems. With a quick commerce thing, it would be a last mile delivery problem. How to identify quickly where the address is. For us, it could be a different problem. How to create the trust in people. So initially, when you are talking to customers, we are talking to doing the initial sales, one of the founders should be involved, because someone in the core team has to have that know-how, because at that time you are not sure whether the person you have hired in would be sticking for a long time. If you are sure that they will be sticking for a longer term, then it's okay to outsource those bits. The second is, it's a balance of what kind of startup or what stage you are in. So for example, you have some funding, either when I say funded startup, it could be bootstrapped as well. If you have cash to spare, your time is worth a lot. So you teaching someone to code or learn something and then developing an app does not make sense. If you can afford hire someone who knows how to do what to do, you'll maybe spend the same money that you would have spent in 6 months or 8 months, but you would develop the thing in 2 months. And eventually, when you are building team for solving for unit economics and all, you'll realize that you need to hire people who are juniors, who keep getting trained, getting promoted and take up the senior positions, and you have a leadership now that is growing.
How do you find and hire great people?
That's something I don't have an answer to, and I'd love to have an answer to. It's still a mystery for us, because hiring great people is like not very easy. And great people, when I say, it's not about the pedigree that they are from Ivy League or something. It is like people who have the skill set and a great attitude. So attitude matters a lot. We have had people who had great skills but probably not cut out for startups. There are people who have like moderate skills but great at learning and absorbing, and we love working with such people. But hiring them is serendipity. The one thing you can increase your chances is, it's something like a luck surface area. Keep meeting a lot of people, keep showing up at a lot of places, keep talking to people that you are looking for someone, and referrals and all. Referrals are great to reduce the chances of mistake. But sometimes there is serendipity. We have found people on online portals who have been great assets to the team.
Do you believe in work-life balance?
I personally, work-life balance is a very subjective thing. For me, I enjoy what I'm doing. So for me, that is like a part of the life as well. And there are certain times when I end up in the office even on holidays, because like nothing better to do. And the other thing is that if you can take out time for something else, if you would have put it in your startup, would it have moved the needle? If the answer is yes, probably you can work out more on your startup. There's something like, don't go with the words, but the gist of it. Struggle now, enjoy later, or enjoy now, struggle later. So you can decide, do you want to do?
What's something you're insecure about as a founder?
Insecure about a lot of time, because there is a lot of noise also, and as humans it is not possible to filter out the noise every time because of the news, media, such a connected world with social media and all. Because of the noise, sometimes I personally feel, and I think my co-founders will also co-hire, is that are we moving at a good speed or are we slow? So that is something which keeps us up at night sometimes, that we are not at the speed that we'd want to be.
What's one thing new founders need to unlearn while building a brand?
I'll tell you from a perspective of the third-time co-founder, while building a startup, and I think it is very important for the first-time founders as well. A lot of time we come with a lot of baggage of assumptions from how we are born and brought up, where we have stayed, our previous jobs, our family experiences, friends experiences, those kind of things. And those assumptions are like, they kill the product market fit or they kill the startup sometimes, because you are heavily biased towards something. For instance, I sometimes have a lot of biases because of my previous experience, that something will work or something will not work, depending on what kind of a bet it is. We sometimes, three of us decide to do something. It could be that one of us is not on board or two of us are not on board, but we feel that it is worth a trial. We can do a limited experiment. We are open to. We are open to learning from small experiments. If I have to think of it as a startup, I am happy to be wrong if we all win as a NeoDocs. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. So your assumptions and biases, because sometimes need to be open to listening to everyone or trying out things which you may feel may not work. Again, you have to keep a balance on what it is.
What's one thing no one tells you about having investors?
One thing is that you have to continuously be communicating with some of them, like at times. You have to set a balance. Your task is like building the startup, building sales, building products that people want, designing those products, developing those products, experimenting out those kind of things. You cannot be just with investors or investor calls on every week, because sometimes founders get into the fundraise is the product, that you keep raising funds again and again and you discount the products and all, because I think some people find it glamorous, like you are a storyteller that people are willing to bet upon, you are the visionary that people are willing to bet upon. It's sometimes easy to get lost into that, but having said that, investors sometimes do add a lot of value because they have had experiences with other startups, or you're getting them on board because of their experiences. For instance, we have angels who have had their own startup experiences in healthcare, in other spaces, and sometimes sounding across problems to them, they do have practical answers, or they do help us connect with someone. If we are hiring, they sometimes help us with referrals and all. So it's certain cadence, keep informing them about how the business is going. One thing is we send them an email, and in which the major highlight is the problems that we are facing or the help that we need, and though that is the highlighted part, that part is at the top, and all the business metrics are at the bottom, because that is where they've already invested, so they are on your side, so they don't have anywhere else to go, so they are supposed to help you now grow or solve the problem.
How important is storytelling in fundraising?
Storytelling is important in terms of where your idea can grow to. Sometimes you underestimate a lot, sometimes you overestimate a lot. People who are listening, they automatically discount it at certain times, or they are able to see a value which you are not able to see. Storytelling becomes an important part because you have to market, you have to sell as well, you have to hire as well, you have to raise funds. So everything fundamentally is a storytelling. So you have to be a good storyteller, or at least one of the co-founders has to be a good storyteller to keep the things running on all aspects.
One financial mistake you'll never repeat.
In my previous company, when I was running the service company, we were having revenues, we had like money and all, we were making profits, we had our own money, there was no investment and all. I feel good that it was our own money and not investment money, but spending on things which may not necessarily add a lot to productivity or move the needle or help the team in any way. For instance, we spent a lot on office space. So that was something I feel that was not necessary. At NeoDocs, we ran out of a 150 square foot office space, I think almost for 2.5 years, in spite of having raised 2 rounds of funding. So we did not get a like swanky office space just because we had funding.
One mistake that can kill a new business fast.
Sometimes people wait for the perfect product. So that is something that kills a product. We sometimes develop prototypes, we take it to the market even when they are like half-baked. We test out the market quickly because we know if there is a interest, we can move the team quickly to finish off the product.
If you had to hold a 10-minute class for new founders, what would you teach them?
I feel like coming from an engineering background and having seen a lot of my peers from engineering background, they are very bad at marketing and sales. Superb and amazing at tech, product development, algorithm, mathematics, but marketing and sales is a very great skill and very undervalued skill, I think. And very undervalued in terms of people don't want to learn or don't think about it learning, but that is something that everyone should learn.
Say I have zero business background but a great idea. Where do I even start?
That is where your hustle instincts also come into play. How do you develop that idea or you test out that idea? There could be multiple pathways rather. So if you're a great storyteller and you can raise investments, you raise investment, then set out to build a team, you can hire resources to build the idea. If you cannot raise investments or are not at that position, then you can keep reaching out to people and find someone who can help you build the product, because eventually you will need a team, you will need co-founders. You can test out your convincing skills or asking people to help you out. The other is if you can bootstrap or raise a small family friends round for tech products and all, you can use like freelancing platforms and all. In fact, I have also used them for developing a MVP just to raise funds or start the sales or get the ball rolling.
Is everyone cut out for entrepreneurship?
I think no, because there are different things that different people enjoy. For instance, we ourselves as co-founders, we enjoy a different set of things. But the thing is that all those are core things to the startup. So that's why we feel the thrill of the kill to build things. So we started up, but there are a lot of risks as well. There are times and when you have a lot of stress, things are not working out. And for instance, for us, when we were waiting for licenses, we were waiting for like almost 4, 5, 6 months and there was no revenues because we did not have the licenses. We are burning money on the team and clinical trials, all those things. And at those low times, like it is very stressful. Not everyone I feel is cut out for that. You eventually develop good coping mechanisms as a good founder that you can handle stress well. That sometimes comes handy as a skill in life as well. But yeah, and that is also where being a solo co-founder, you have everything to yourself. You either need someone to vent out to or talk to at times. So that's why I feel that having more than one founder is a good thing to have. You can share your problems, you can share what you are feeling with each other. It becomes like a therapy for each other.
How do you stand out in a sea of startup?
The thing is that you focus on your customers. We don't worry about what the competition is, what they are doing. We worry more about our products, our customers, why they are buying from us, what they are buying from us. Everyone has a number of choices, but there is some reason. Some people buy from you, some segment of it stick with you, are recurring customers. So we focus more on our customers. We try not to get into the noise, not to get distracted by a lot of things happening in the market.
Any last bits of advice for people that want to start their own business but haven't done it yet?
Whenever you feel like that you want to start up, it is a great time to start up, because as time passes, the risk appetite or practically starts getting reduced. For example, if you're straight out of college or in college, your risk appetite is super high. You have nothing to lose. You can get back into a job. If you're in your mid 30s or 40s, you can quickly start. You're not yet old. You don't have a lot of other responsibilities. So if you're in your 50s or 60s, you're still not yet old, you can do a lot of things yourself. So no time is a wrong time, but as soon as you feel, you should think of how to design your life around it to start. The sooner you start, the easier it is. If you are later on in your life, you'll have to think of if you have children, your children's education, your spouse, your rents or your family responsibilities, which are some practical things which people miss out on, because not everyone has the luxury of not having responsibilities.
Thanks for joining me for Chai with Shai, Anurag.
Yes,
This
thanks.
was such a good conversation.
Yeah, great talking to you, Shai.
Thank you.
If you like this video, click here for more conversations with young founders as we dive into the realities of building companies, making difficult decisions, and learning through the process.